Champlain audiocast test.
Test 1 2. Test 1 2. Test 2. Test 2.
Good afternoon. I'd like to call this afternoon's meeting of the Agriculture Rural Affairs Committee meeting to order. We'll begin. Are there any declarations of interest? The confirmation of the minutes of the meeting of the 5th of June 2014 of the Agriculture and Rural Affairs Committee. Is that carried? I'll read my statement now. This is a public meeting to consider the proposed zoning bylaw amendments listed as items 2 to 12 on today's agenda. For the items listed above, only those who make oral submissions today or written submissions before the amendments are adopted may appeal the matter to the Ontario Municipal Board. In addition, the applicant may appeal the matter to the Ontario Municipal Board if Council does not adopt an amendment within 120 days of receipt of the application of zoning and 180 days for an official plan amendment. A comment sheet is available at the door for anyone wishing to submit written comments on these amendments. So with that, we'll go through the agenda. The first item is the Gazelle Municipal Drain Modifications, and my understanding that that is going to be withdrawn from today's agenda. Is that correct, Mr. Ryan? Okay, so on that item it's recommended to be withdrawn. Is that carried? Item number 2, the Comprehensive Zoning Bylaw 2008-250 Omnibus Zoning Bylaw Amendments. The motion is that the Agriculture and Rural Affairs Committee recommend Council approve amendments to Zoning Bylaw 2008-250 as shown in Document 1 and detailed in Documents 2 and 3. Now we have 2 speakers and we have a technical amendment. So perhaps, Councillor Moffat, if you would just read the appropriate part of the technical amendment, and then I will speak to the 2 speakers.
This is just in relation to an application, development application in Richmond, 6335 and 6350 Pro Street, based on an OMB decision that was come to about a month ago. So therefore be it resolved that document 2, zoning details to be considered by both Planning, Agricultural and Rural Affairs Committee of Report ACS 2014-PAI-PGM-0143 be amended by adding an additional item being an amendment to exceptions 778R, 779R, and 780R to exempt the lands known municipally as 6335 and 6350 Pro Street from the recommended changes to Section 65, permitted projections into required yards, Table 65-5, BA2 and 6A2. And be it further resolved that no further notice be provided pursuant to Section 34, Subsection 17 of the Planning Act.
Okay, thank you, Councillor Moffat. We have 2 speakers registered for item number 2, Cheryl Dolan and Sarah Miller. Are you in favor of the motion or are you opposed? You're in favor? Sarah and Cheryl? Going once, going twice. Okay, so Sarah, you'll be satisfied if we carry this? Okay, so item number 2 as amended, is that carried? Right, carried, thank you. Okay, sorry, Councillor Kadri.
Mr. Chair, I just want to make a comment on this omnibus motion. As one of the pieces of property in Stittsville at 6279 Fernbank was supposed to be included in this motion, was withdrawn by staff because of a pending OMB appeal hearing on that piece of property. So I just want to make that as a public statement so people know what's happened with that particular piece.
Okay, thank you very much, Councillor Kadri. And that's noted. Councillor Moffat.
So I just wanted to commend Carol Ruddy, who was the staff member involved in this. There was a couple items here that she had worked on for quite a while, but one of them in particular was a situation where undersized lots, when undersized lots would come forward in the city of Ottawa for approving to build on, they'd have to get a minor variance. Minor variance costs about $1,700-$1,800. Every single time one of these undersized lots come forward, the landlord would have to go to the community adjustment, pay the $1,700, and then get approved. It was approved every single time. So what we've done through this amendment is remove that requirement. So it's going to save a number of landowners that bit of money, because it was really just a money grab in the end, because they kept on getting approved every single time. So I appreciate, Carol, your work on that, and it's a good move forward for people in the rural area.
Thank you, Councillor Moffat, and Carol is a commendable person, so thank you, Carol, for that. Item number 3, the zoning bylaw amendment, 1575 Diamond View Road, that the Agriculture and Rural Affairs Committee recommend Council approve an amendment to zoning bylaw 2008-250 for 1575 Diamond View Road to permit a heavy equipment and vehicle sales, rental, and servicing facility as detailed in document 2. So on that item, is that carried? Thank you. Item number 4, zoning bylaw amendment 2938 Goodstown Road, that the Agriculture and Rural Affairs Committee recommend Council approve an amendment to the zoning bylaw 2008-250 for 2938 Goodstown Road to change the zoning of the severed land to prohibit future residential uses and to change the zoning of the retained land to recognize the reduced lot size as shown in document 1 and detailed in document 2. Is that carried? Item number 5, zoning bylaw amendment 2075 Trim Road. The motion is that the Agriculture and Rural Affairs Committee recommend Council approve an amendment to the zoning bylaw 2008-250 for 2075 Trim Road to permit an office, park, and recreational and athletic facility limited to indoor sports field as detailed in document 2. Now we have a speaker who is okay with that item, and that speaker is Greg. Greg, are you happy if it passes? Okay, so on that item, 5 carried. Thank you. Item number 6, zoning bylaw amendment 2349, 2437 Carp Road and 512 William Mooney Road. We have 6 speakers on that, so we'll hold that item. Item number 7, zoning bylaw amendment 150 and 170 Salisbury Street. The motion is that the Agriculture and Rural Affairs Committee recommend Council approve an amendment to zoning bylaw 2008-250 for 150 and 170 Salisbury Street to permit 15 townhouse dwelling units as detailed in document 2. Is that carried? Item number 8, the zoning bylaw amendment 5574 Rockdale Road, that the Agriculture and Rural Affairs Committee recommend Council approve an amendment to the zoning bylaw 2008-250 for 5574 Rockdale Road to permit a 2-story apartment building as detailed in document 1. We have 1 speaker listed, Andre Roland. Andre, are you happy if we approve this? Okay, on this item, is it carried? Carried. Thank you. Thank you, Andre. Number 9, zoning anomaly report to update the floodplain mapping in the Armitage Avenue and Baskin Beach areas. Motion is that Agriculture and Rural Affairs Committee recommend Council approve an amendment to the zoning bylaw 2008-250 to update the floodplain mapping in the Armitage Avenue and Baskins Beach area as detailed in document 1 and as shown in document 2. Is that carried?
Carried, Mr. Chair, but if I can take a moment to say thank to all the agency and staff working on this file. This is a long time coming. As if you look, it's been on since quite some times, but anyway, it took us long enough to get where we are today, and I want to say thank you to all the staff and the agencies involved, Mississippi Valley and Rideau Valley Conservation as well. Thank you, Mr. Chair.
Thank you, Councillor Deputy Mayor Al-Shantiri. Item number 10, the zoning bylaw amendment, 7579 Spring Hill Road in beautiful downtown Osgood Ward. That Agriculture and Rural Affairs Committee recommend council approve an amendment to zoning bylaw 2008-250 for 7579 Spring Hill Road to prohibit future residential uses as detailed in document 2. Is that carried? Item number 11, zoning bylaw amendment 7086 7100 Rideau Valley Drive. That Agriculture and Rural Affairs Committee recommend council approve an amendment to zoning bylaw 2008-250 for 7086 7100 Rideau Valley Drive to prohibit future residential uses as detailed in document 2. And we have a speaker, Mr. Murray Chown. Murray, you know the rules. If you're happy, we're happy, everybody's happy? I'd like everybody to be happy. Okay. So on this item, it's carried. Okay, thank you, Murray. Item number 12, the zoning bylaw amendment 5935, 5939, and 5949 First Line Road. That the Agriculture and Rural Affairs Committee recommend council approve an amendment to zoning bylaw 2008-250 for 5935, 5939, and 5949 First Line Road to recognize a reduced lot size and side yard setback for a lot containing an existing dwelling and prohibit future residential uses on the retained farmland as detailed in document 2. So is that item carried? Okay, item number 13. We have installation and use of a boat launch on a property known as Part Lot 8, Concession Long Island. Is that the part, Councilor Moffat, that used to belong to the Township of Osgood years ago? No. There was a section that they stole from us. Not this one. That the Agriculture and Rural Affairs Committee recommend that council approve that installation and use of a boat launch be permitted on the property known as Part Lot 8, Concession Long Island, PIN number 04589-0865, Geographic Township of Gloucester, City of Ottawa. Is that item carried? With the indulgence of the members of committee, there is no item 14 on your agenda, but there is an item that I would ask to bring forward now, if I could, we can discuss it now before we go back to the held item. So if you're in agreement for me to bring that forward, I would ask Vice Chair Blais to take over the chair and let me introduce this motion. Sorry to interrupt you.
By all means.
I try to sever a lot for you.
Yeah, probably.
This, I think you have the motion in front of you. I'm just going to read it. This issue has come up in the last 3 months, and I've been working with Councillor Deputy Mayor El Shantiri's office on this item. Whereas a building permit is required for the legalization of a garage at 5207 Bank Street, which is understood to have been constructed in the 1990s, and whereas it is desirable for this legislation to be resolved as soon as possible, therefore be resolved that the following item be added to the agenda of the July 3rd, 2014 meeting of the Agriculture and Rural Affairs Committee pursuant to the Procedure Bylaw subsection 84.3, whereas the garage has been present on the site since the 1990s, and whereas the applicant's applicable municipal development charges in force today are $34,454.76, and the municipal development charges in force in 1999 were $4,451.37, whereas it is deemed appropriate that the 1999 charges be confirmed as the amount to be collected, therefore resolved that the Agriculture and Rural Affairs Committee recommend to Council that the development charges applicable to the garage at 5207 Bank Street be confirmed to be $4,451.37 provided the building permit be obtained prior to September 30th, 2014. And if I could, for the members of the committee, this individual purchased this property and had to do modifications. He's going to do a car detailing business. He bought the property, applied to do some renovations to the building, and it was found out that there never was a building permit issued for this property in the early 1990s from the former township of Gloucester. So he came to me to discuss this and he's quite prepared to update everything as is required by the building department, but he felt it was unfair, since the building is there and he's remodeling it, that he would be charged the development charges as of this year. So I spoke to city staff, and they had prepared this motion for me for consideration today, and I think it's a fair compromise given the facts that are listed there. So I'm moving this motion and asking for your support, and if you have any questions, I'd be prepared to take them at this time.
Councillor Kadri. Thank you, Mr. Chair. Just coming back to the date on there, September 30th, 2014. What happens if that building permit is not available by that time? Do we go back to the original or the new charge of development charge?
Mr. Mark, or sorry.
No problem, it's hard to get up.
Mr. Chair, there's a desire on the part of staff that this matter be finalized as expeditiously as possible, and that's why a deadline was imposed on it, that if the discretion of the city is put towards going with lower charge, there's a time frame that the applicant has to act by in order to benefit from that discretion.
Thank you, Mr. Mark. And just a comment or a question to staff. Does staff obviously support this motion?
Staff are comfortable with this motion, Mr. Chair.
Thank you very much. Thank you, Mr. Chair.
If I could, Mr. Vice Chair, in answer to your question, the applicant is very anxious to move this forward. So I think, and he's explained that to myself and Mr. Mark. So I think the deadline is appropriate, and he's as soon as it's approved, he's going to be moving forward.
Councillor Olshan, did you have a question? No? Okay. Thank you. And on the motion, everyone? Carried.
Thank you very much, Vice Chair Blais, for that. We will now move back to the held item, item number 6, zoning bylaw amendment 2349-2437 Carp Road and 512 William Mooney Road. And I'll just read the motion that's before us. We have 6 speakers. We will have a staff presentation, and then we'll call on the speakers. The motion that's before us, that the Agriculture and Rural Affairs Committee recommend Council approve an amendment to zoning bylaw 2008-250 for 2349 through 2437 Carp Road and 512 William Mooney Road to permit the expansion of a solid waste disposal facility subject to a holding provision and increased setback as shown in Document 1 and as detailed in Document 2. So that's the motion that is before us. I will ask Mr. Moody to perhaps introduce this and introduce Cheryl.
Mr. Chair, I'm not sure that Ms. McWilliams needs any introduction. She's our senior planner in the rural area and has been in front of you a number of times, as I know, but for the members of the audience, Cheryl McWilliams is the file lead on this application and has been carrying it forward through its process and will be providing you with the presentation to give you the additional background in addition to what's in the staff report.
Good afternoon. This is a zoning application for a series of properties on Carp Road and a property on William Mooney Road. I won't go through the list as Councillor Thompson has already gone through it. So the staff recommendation is to rezone all of the properties to a rural heavy industrial exception zone with a holding provision on it. And that exception zone will add solid waste disposal facility to the rural heavy industrial zone, and the additional exceptions relate to increased yard setbacks on the perimeter of the property or the properties or the site itself, and to make sure that those setback areas are soft landscaped, essentially vegetated, and that no other uses would be permitted within that then. The holding zone would be lifted upon completion of site plan control. So that's what the recommendation from staff is about. With respect to the site itself, this is the 417 where it bends. The split down Highway 7, Carp Road, Richardson Side Road, William Mooney Road, and the existing landfill facility is located here, and the subject site, subject to this rezoning, is immediately to the, well, north, if you consider Carp Road running north-south. Stittsville is in this vicinity. Canada is to the west, or sorry, to the east. There's an existing quarry in this location, some existing commercial and industrial uses along Carp Road, rural residential uses in this general area, and then the airport sort of anchoring the Carp Road businesses is in this location, just to give you an idea of where we are. This is the official plan, Schedule A, the rural schedule, showing in purple the Carp Road corridor rural employment area, and the subject site lies within that corridor with the small exception of this little gray parcel, which is a mineral or a sand and gravel resource area. The symbol for the solid waste disposal facility is the black dot, and that represents the general location of existing solid waste disposal facilities. The gray is the quarry lands, and the sort of the lighter yellow color, it appears on the screen here, are general rural lands, and again, the urban boundary is located in this area. So the official plan designation, the Carp Road Corridor Rural Employment Area, refers back to the Carp Road Community Design Plan for guidance in terms of the specific zones to be contemplated. And it does contemplate that larger land-based industrial uses are identified for that area. The solid waste disposal symbol, it does contemplate within the official plan, it does contemplate that with an approved EA expansion is possible, but it does require a zoning bylaw amendment. There is an approved EA on the site, so it does meet that particular test in the official plan. The EA is conditional on a number of items that the Ministry of Environment has placed on the approval, and those have to be met before the construction can begin on the landfill facility. The additional thing with respect to the solid waste disposal facility and looking at the expansion is that we cannot be duplicating any of the works or reports and studies involved in the EA process. This is from the Carp Road Corridor Plan. And again, the subject site is here. Carp Road is running in this direction, and the 417 is through here. So this is the existing facility. This is the proposed expansion area, which is in the Carp Road Corridor Plan, identified for heavy industrial area in the darker color, and in the lighter blue for light industrial area. Because the Carp Road Corridor is not secondary plan under the official plan, no site-specific secondary plan amendment would be required for the rezoning to be considered. Let's skip that one. So with respect to the zones that we're looking at, the existing zones are the beige color is the existing mineral extraction zones. Those are sand and gravel pits whose license have been released, so they're abandoned, have been to a certain extent reclaimed, restored. And under the official plan, no amendment is needed to redesignate those. So where it showed in the official plan as being a mineral or pits or sand and gravel resource, there's no need for an official plan amendment to amend it, amend the zoning on that. The lighter blue area is existing general industrial, rural general industrial zone. There's a holding on it subject to site plan approval. And the balance, the area C in the darker blue, they're all the rural heavy industrial zone. So with respect to the zoning bylaw amendment itself, I've gone through the existing zones, and the proposed zone would see the addition of the solid waste disposal facility into the general or into the rural heavy industrial exception zone, and it would also add the holding provision with respect to site plan control approval. The yard setbacks that we're looking at would not allow any outdoor storage within them and would all be required to have soft landscaping with an exception for accesses through it and for the storm pond that are being proposed in it. So the soft landscaping, again, is vegetated area. And upping the minimum lot area as well to 70 hectares. So this is the concept plan that was filed with the zoning application. Again, it's just a concept plan. The applicant still has to go through site plan control approval, and to that end, we were tailoring the zoning to a certain extent to reflect what the concept plan was showing, and in discussions with the applicant, they had no particular issues with that. So what they are showing here is, again, the 417 Carp Road along the bottom, the proposed new entrance, the storm facilities at the front, existing rice and kitchen facility, and the landfill site itself. There is a proposed public drop-off and handling facility at the front, and the existing landfill, again, is to the south, and there's existing recycling diversion facilities basically off the William Mooney side of the, or on the William Mooney side of the site, closer to the 417. The existing setbacks that are being shown to the landfill itself are about 118 meters off of William Mooney, and we're requesting that the zoning for the soft landscaping be a minimum of the 75 meters. To the north side of the property, closer to Richardson Side Road here, they're showing about 100 meters, and we're recommending that there be a minimum of 40 meters of soft landscaping here. And along Carp Road, they're showing approximately 50 meters setback to any of the facility right now, and we're recommending that that 50 meters be in the zoning itself. And those yard setbacks are increased from between 3 and 10 meters on the north, on the Richardson side, up to the 40, and then from 12 to 15 meters, depending on the zone, up to 75 meters along William Mooney, and again, 12 to 15 along Carp, up to 50 meters. Apologize for the quality of this. Something happened in translation into the PowerPoint presentation. The traffic study filed with the application does show a new proposed entrance, and they are proposing and turn lane southbound left turn and northbound left turn lanes. They're also proposing paved shoulders. The details of that will have to be dealt with through a roadway modification, and that will be a requirement of submission at the site plan application stage. At this point, staff have reviewed their traffic study and have no specific concerns with it. There's details that will need to be addressed through the roadway modification. At the time of site plan approval, we will be expecting the application for road modification to be 80% design complete, so we'll know in a fair bit of detail what exactly will be proposed for that particular entrance. With respect to the environmental assessment that was completed a few years ago, the city does have a number of matters that are outstanding and are recognized by staff as well as the applicant, and those matters relate to odor, the property value plan for properties within 5 kilometers, the service area that the facility will be drawing from, and often it's called the good neighbor area or service area, so that it's only our immediate neighbors that we'd prefer to have the waste coming from, to make sure that the diversion priority for diversion from landfill occurs. And then finally, there was a public liaison committee, which I believe is now up and running. With respect to those first 4 matters, for the most part, they're matters that aren't specifically addressed either through zoning or through site plan control. But there will be the environmental compliance process, which is underway, and that is a Ministry of the Environment process. Our site plan control will deal with some matters, but not those specific ones. And then there will be also the host agreement or third-party agreement that the applicant, I believe, has agreed to work on. And the Public Liaison Committee will be working with the applicant, with the public, and with the city in terms of providing information about moving forward with the host agreement. That's certainly my understanding. I'm not specifically involved in that process, but my understanding is that that work is started. With respect to matters that we'll be looking for resolution at site plan control, the environmental site assessment, with respect to natural features, we will be looking for specific mitigation for, in this case, the loss of the interior woodlot. They have conceptually proposed mitigation and compensation, and we'll be looking for fine-tuning that and having details for that as part of the site plan control process. In addition, with respect to some of the other site environmental issues, we will be also looking at site plan control for the wetland compensation and, sorry, I just can't remember what the other thing is. Again, with site plan control, there will be some additional details we'll be looking for with respect to ground and surface water. These are matters for the Ministry of Environment typically, as with noise and odor impacts. So what we will be primarily focusing on is the site servicing. That's the last point on the slide. With respect to traffic, I've already spoken about the requirement for the roadway modifications that will be required on Carp Road and at the new entrance, and those will be also part of the submission for site plan approval. The other matter that staff will be looking for in terms of site plan approval is the aesthetics and buffering from the roads. And that's part of the reason we're looking at the increased setbacks and the soft landscaping to both soften the view from the roads as well as assist in some of the mitigation. And some of those buffering areas will also serve for some of the mitigation relating to the natural features. Just quickly in summary, the zoning bylaw amendment is primarily looking at land use. The details of the zoning bylaw with respect to the holding and the exception zones for the increased setbacks are in a way looking to mitigate and address some of the concerns that still have to be dealt with as part of site plan control approval. So until the site plan is approved, we won't be in a position to come back to council to look to lifting the holding zone. As part of the process, as I understand it, the environmental compliance process will be well underway before the site plan control moves forward. And so we'll have a much better understanding of the details of the site before we go to lift the holding. The proposed zoning bylaw with the holding in place does address the official plan and does comply with the official plan, and staff therefore recommend that you approve the zoning. Thank you.
Thank you, Cheryl, and it was an excellent presentation, and it shows the outstanding results of the outstanding training that you received in the former township of Osgood. Perhaps I just wonder, Cheryl, if you wouldn't mind putting up slide 10. I think that would be nice to have when we have the speakers list. Just before we go to the speakers, Councillor Deputy Mayor Al-Shantiri had a couple of pertinent questions that he would like to ask. So, Councillor Deputy Mayor.
Thank you very much, Mr. Chair, and thank you, Cheryl, for your presentation. My question is also to, I know, Ms. William, you talk about the hold-in. To staff recommend approve of the zoning with the hold-in on. Can you tell me how long the hold-in could be? Like, I know you're talking about still the environmental compliance comes first, or like how long can you, because as of today, I believe, or yesterday, the 120 days the company has applied for zoning changes will elapse. So therefore, you're recommending approval of the zoning with the condition of holding. How long can you put the holding on, and how much power that holding will have for us to continue negotiating with the company?
The holding can be left on indefinitely. It's certainly not the ideal situation. The holding is typically used as an interim measure to resolve specific matters, and in this case, it's the site plan control. So
but there's the site plan control, and also there's the traffic concern we had talked about before, and I'm just wondering, just so I can understand how much that holding will give us the leverage to continue working with the company to mitigate those concerns.
My understanding is as long as the holding is on and we don't have site plan control, that the zoning is one of the, I guess, check marks on their environmental compliance that the ministry looks for, and typically it's in place upon submission, but to the ministry, but it can be something that the ministry conditions, and in this case, if the holding is on it, that means they haven't met that ECA condition and couldn't start construction, as I understand the way the process works, until the holding is lifted.
Okay, Mr. Moody.
Mr. Chair, if I could add to that, the holding provision can actually be a very functional tool, and I believe, staff believe that it is in this case a functional tool to help bring us to a point where the city is satisfied that the site plan, road modifications, and other required agreements meet our satisfaction. The benefit of the holding provision, as Ms. McWilliams has said, is that it can stay on indefinitely, and until that holding provision is lifted, the proponent does not have the required zoning to proceed with that site. So it is an effective tool in a zoning framework they don't have the legal right to operate a waste disposal site on this facility until that H is actually lifted.
Okay, Mr. Chair, if I can ask legal one question, and I'm going to be specific. We have two options in front of us today. One of them is to approve the zoning with the holding. Can you tell us if we decide not to, so that means we lose the power of negotiation and the proponent can go automatically to OMB because we had elapsed 120 days? Can you explain to me what's the option here we have in front of us?
Mr. Chair, with respect to understanding the question, the lapsing of the 120 days aside, the approval of a holding provision is, as staff has suggested, it is a very functional tool to ensure that there is some measured of forward progress with the proponent on their development application, which is what I believe the ministry is looking for, but at the same time is an effective control from a municipal perspective under the Planning Act to ensure that there are that there continues to be an active negotiation with the proponent in terms of the outstanding concerns that the city maintains, including, it will take us up to and including site plan control approval and any conditions under that site plan approval.
So when we talk about the modification of the road and the traffic impact, is that fall under the site plan approval?
Road modifications, traffic impacts, these are items that are traditionally discussed under site plan approval in the negotiation of conditions for site plan approval, and they are mandated under the Planning Act, Section 41.
Okay, thank you. Thank you, Mr. Chair.
Thank you, Councillor Deputy Mayor El-Santiri. Councillor Kadri, a quick question.
Thank you, Mr. Chair. And just a couple of questions on the presentation itself, and then later questions with staff. Mr. McWilliams, if you can go to your slide number 4. It mentions subject land solid waste disposal facility identified with a black dot. What is the second black dot that's on the far left-hand side of the slide under number 14? What does that represent?
Do you want to answer? I'm not sure. Mr. Chair, that's another waste disposal site.
Sorry,
that is another waste disposal site.
Yeah. Thank you for that. Slide number 12. Let me just get there. This one here that says EA matters outstanding for the city. It mentions in there number 3 diversion priorities. Because it's referred to as an environmental center by the proponent, have we got any kind of guidelines for that diversion priority, or is that just something that we would be looking at and negotiating through the site plan approval?
The diversion priority is not necessarily something that we would see through the site plan control application process. It is a matter that's outstanding. The city has targets that they're seeking, and they're not through necessarily specific Planning Act zoning bylaw amendment applications or site plan control applications, but they are a target that the city is looking to achieve with respect to certainly the industrial, commercial, and institutional waste and diversion relating to those. And I believe from what the environmental assessment indicated, or the city's concerns with the environmental assessment, was that it didn't have, this application did not have enough priority for diversion within their environmental assessment. And as part of our moving forward with the environmental compliance and the host agreement, we're hoping to, I guess, put that higher in their agenda in terms of what occurs on the site. With respect to zoning, the official plan and the zoning, the existing official plan for solid waste facility and the recommended zoning, if the holding were to be lifted, would allow for the full range of waste processes, both landfilling as well as diversion, incineration, recycling. It does allow for that entire range of possibilities within it. So with respect to the zoning, it's not eliminating diversion as a priority, but with respect to their concept that they've provided with the zoning, they, other than the public facility, drop-off facility at the front, at the Carp Road side of their site, there was not an abundance of new proposed facilities that would indicate that there was a great deal of diversion happening on the site. I'm not sure if that gets to your question or not, sorry.
Yeah, it does answer part of the question, but coming back to the diversion priority, I mean, it does say in the proposal in the environmental assessment that it is classified as an environmental center. Mm-hmm. So that, to me, in the wording means more than just a landfill. And I'm hoping that the diversion priorities would be discussed through the site plan approval process, because at site plan level, they would be not forced, they would be asked to provide building sizes and so on and so forth, and that would reflect into their diversion priorities, I would assume.
Correct. And that's what we're hoping to see with the site plan application, is details on what that public drop-off facility is. I know there's been mention of some other proposals that Waste Management is looking for on the site, and we're hoping to see those as part of the site plan control application as well.
Thank you very much. Thank you, Mr. Chair, and I will have some questions later on following this public speakers.
Thank you very much, and I just wanted to introduce the more tender gender person at the table, Councillor Wilkinson. You had a quick question before we go to speakers.
I'm not sure if people think I'm tender. Yeah, I just wanted to follow up on that, because we've had a meeting with Waste Management. We've talked about what they're going to do about the recycling issues. And what I said to them that I thought is essential, that they show where they can put the recycling facilities on the site plan, because otherwise they may not have a place where they can put them later on. And they went through the entire EA process, telling the public, showing them plans that showed that they will be doing recycling. They've told us they plan to do it, but at a later stage. And I was saying is that there should be at least a general location of where these are on the original site plan, so we have something to come back to. We know it can be handled. Now, is that possible to get done? The city demand that they do that under the circumstance that they have actually made commitments to the public that they're going to, at some time, do that.
Mr. Chair, that's direction that we can take and bring forward. I assume that there will be a delegation from Waste Management speaking today, and it may be something you may wish to ask them directly, but from a staff perspective, that's certainly something we can take forward as direction as we enter into discussions with respect to site plan and the host agreement.
Yeah. Well, I've already asked them that question, and they've said later, but not now, but I think they understand that we need to be able to show that there's space to do it, because otherwise what do we end up with? Thank you.
Thank you, Councillor Wilkinson, and thank you for joining our esteemed team. We have 6 speakers listed. We have 9 speakers listed. Olivia Nixon, if you could come forward. And the next speaker is Harold Moore. So, Harold, if you are ready, as soon as Olivia is finished, we'll call you down.
Thank you, Mr. Chair.
Hi, Olivia, and I think you know the rules. You have 5 minutes, and then there may be questions. Mark is a very tough person, so I'll give you a 1-minute warning when you have 1 minute left.
I think hopefully I'll be less than 5 minutes.
Okay. Thank you.
Okay. So I'll be very quick. For those of you who don't know me, my name is Olivia Nixon. I live 1.2 kilometers northwest of the current landfill. This is what I'll be speaking about today. First of all, there is no garbage crisis. We've been living without the old Carp landfill since 2011, and the earth hasn't imploded and the sky hasn't fallen. Secondly, this new landfill is not for Ottawa garbage. It's for garbage from all of Ontario. Where does most of that garbage come from? It comes from Southern Ontario and the GTA area, so we will get their garbage. The other thing that I want to just briefly talk about is what makes good decisions versus bad decisions. I won't go over this in detail with you, but I fear we're at risk of making a very bad decision today. So then that leads to me to exactly what are we deciding on today? Well, this is it. The picture says 1,000 words. That's what we'll be voting on. That will be the view of the west end of Ottawa. But what it also means is that when guests at a new hotel that could be built or is planned near the Canadian Tire Centre, when they look out their windows toward the west, they'll be looking down on the open face of an operating landfill. When visitors and shoppers at the Tangers and Bass Pro outlet store and mall spend a day there and they catch a whiff of landfill odor and go, what's that? And then they learn that it's from a landfill. Will they come back? When homeowners in Jackson Trails, Echo Woods, the Mattamy Homes development, Arcadia, Canada Lakes, Jackson Trail, I said that, can't enjoy their backyards because of a giant landfill that's in their neighborhood, that stinks. That's what we've decided today. And when the traffic along Carp Road is too dangerous because of the additional 100 trucks an hour that this project will put on the road, that is what we're looking at approving today. And most importantly, when more of the local aquifer is contaminated, or if other drinking water source wells are contaminated by this landfill, that is what we're contaminated to. That's what we're deciding on today. That's what will be approved today. So in the future, when people look at that and say, well, how could this happen? If we make the wrong decision today, that's how it happened. And we will be part of that decision. Thank you.
Thank you very much, Olivia, for that very poignant presentation. Are there any questions for Olivia before? Thank you very much, Olivia, and we do appreciate your correspondence because it does keep us updated on your thoughts and feeling. Second speaker, Errol Moore. Welcome, Harold, and you know the rules. You have 5 minutes. I'll let you know when you have 1 minute. And I think you said you were going to be as brief as Olivia was. Is that correct?
Issue, so it's hard. Anyway, first of all, I'd like to speak on the issue of diversion, which came up, the question. An example of the corporation's commitment to diversion is well illustrated by their existing transfer and processing station. They got their environmental compliance based on a worst-case scenario of 9% recovery and a best-case scenario of 20% recovery. The last 2 years, they've had 2% and 3% recovery. So there's definitely not a real commitment to diversion. I have a question. Is the zoning application compliant with the Provincial Act and the planning official plan and the bylaws? The Planning Act and the City application protocols require prescribed information and documents to be provided with the application rezoning. The prescribed information is defined in pre-consultation with the City, and of that there are 3 mandatory documents defined by the City, and the survey plan is one of them. They are also required to supply all of their supporting document and information in a PDF form, which can be made public. There is a requirement in the Planning Act that all materials provided to the City are to be made public. And to that end, the City has the development application website, which is available for the public. Staff have confirmed that there are 5 survey plans that are required for the designated properties, that only one of them was filed with the application. And staff also confirmed that all 5 should have been filed with the application. The Planning Act and the official plan mandate that all the information provided with the application must be made public, and that's what the website is for. If only one of the 5 of the survey plans was posted on the website. So in my opinion, the lack of a mandatory required document required by the Planning Act and the official plan means that it really wasn't compliant with the Act. I made comment in the open house sessions that there was a wrong and confusing address information in the whole process. At the beginning, the site addresses is the primary way that the City and the public refer to location of properties. and therefore, and to that end, the zoning amendment application recognizes that, and it's the first field to be filled in the application, and it's a mandatory field. Unfortunately, at the beginning, addresses were wrong on the planning rationale, they were wrong on the road signs, they were wrong on the public notification, and they were wrong on the website itself. I made comment at the open houses, and I would expect that they would have been corrected, but as of this date, they're still wrong on the revised planning rationale, the roadside signs, the development application website, and the overview data sheet, which was provided by the city. It was suggested that there are other forms of defining location, such as the location map in the application. The question is, if there's an error in the addresses, which one is right? Is it the map right, or is the addresses right? And because it's a mandatory requirement of the application process, I would believe that the addresses take precedence. And therefore, again, there's a problem in the process, and I don't think we really have had a proper process. The one thing on the first slide that sorry, I'm controlling the slides. On the first slide, okay, in reference to the 120 days, that is not to take, that 120 days doesn't start until all the applications are submitted. In closing, I would like to propose an amendment to the motion, and that, sorry about this. Give me a minute. 1 minute, a quick. Should be. Yeah, I would like to propose, and I've presented this to the local councillors, that in addition to the motion being that a prohibition on producible waste be added, the EA requested and approved only approved for the disposal of solid non-hazardous waste. It didn't define what type of waste. Producible waste is the primary source of landfill odors, and landfill odors greatly impacted thousands of citizens in the past, and they may do so again. They were the primary problem in the past. Producible waste make up only about 11% of the ICNI waste, which is the primary material going in the landfill. Therefore, it's not a major part of the waste stream. City policy is to remove producible waste organics from disposal.
Harold, I gave you a little leniency because it was a technical problem, so if you could wrap up.
Yeah, I got 2 more points. City policy is to remove the organics from disposal of city landfills, city-operated landfills, and therefore should apply to all landfills within the city. And prohibition of producible waste can replace the leaf and yard waste, which are presently going into the organic waste stream. Thank you. Sorry for running
Thanks very much for the presentation. I believe Councillor Kadri, you had a question.
Mr. Chair, I have a question of staff based on the delegation's presentation. So if you may allow me that, or we can come back to it after.
Maybe if you just take note of the question and ask when we, at the end, when we finished.
Okay, we'll do that, Mr. Chair, but I just want to make a comment on Mr. Moore's presentation.
Okay, absolutely.
I want to thank Mr. Moore and the rest of the team that's out here this afternoon, and for your dedication to this file over the number of years that you've been involved, Harold, and thank you very much for your participation.
You're welcome.
Thank you, Councillor Kadri. Next speaker, Marilyn Jenkins. And then she will be followed by Mary Catherine Augusta, who will be followed by Gerald Augusta. Okay, Marilyn, thank you for coming. You have 5 minutes. I'll warn you when you have 1 minute remaining.
and hopefully I will be a great deal less than that. Again, my name is Marilyn Jenkins.
Olivia set the bar, so.
She certainly did. Marilyn Jenkins, I'm here as a private citizen. I reside in Stittsville, approximately 3.5 kilometers from the dump. The residents, certainly of my area of Stittsville, feel that this new footprint for the dump that you're being asked to approve the zoning for today represents a backward step in looking after the health and welfare of your constituents. I notice most of you are West End councillors. That's why I refer to your constituents. When I attended the city's public meeting on the rezoning application, I was astonished to learn that the city supposedly cannot address the very important issue of groundwater contamination, and that it can only be dealt with by the Ministry of the Environment. We already know that there is significant groundwater contamination which has moved out of the old dump site across Carp Road and from there across the 417 to what is known as the Fuller property. And yet, members of this committee, the proponent of this zoning request has not included the fact that this contamination can flow southeast, but claims it will only flow northeast. Existing facts already prove that this is not the case. At the last open house hosted by Waste Management, I was advised that the existing groundwater contamination was contained within the quarry site across Carp Road. This is, of course, the existing quarry site which Waste Management has purchased due to groundwater contamination from the original dump. Again, I would reiterate that we know that it is not contained there, that it has moved further southeast. I also asked the Waste Management representative how this contamination was going to be cleaned up. The answer was effectively, Mother Nature. Well, given everything else that poor old Mother Nature has to deal with, we know this is going to mean years and years, decades and decades before this will be taken care of. Also, given the amount of development currently underway and the forecast for growth in the West End, it is not reasonable to allow Waste Management the opportunity to add to the contamination level and thus extend the eventual cleanup time required. Since the Ministry of the Environment will not protect the citizens of the West End, it is up to you as members of this committee to look to the long-term health implications of what this rezoning will mean to the residents of the area, present and future. It is up to you to set a precedent for all the other businesses who wish to take the easy road in dealing with waste disposal. It is up to you to say no to this request, as I do not see how you are going to get the many serious issues that are still outstanding addressed at the site plan approval level. Would Waste Management take this matter to the Ontario Municipal Board? Only they know the answer to that, although I suspect we all know what the answer would be. But should they decide to do so, I can think of far worse ways for the city to spend our money than fighting the good fight to end industrial contamination of our lands. Thank you for your time.
Thank you very much, Marilyn. Are there any questions? Seeing none, thanks very much for your presentation. It is appreciated. Next, Mary Catherine Augusta, followed by Gerald. Thank you, Mary Catherine, and you have 5 minutes, and I'll let you know when you have 1 minute remaining.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman, councillors. I have been involved with the waste management proposal for a new dump for 10 years now. I, with other people in the community and with city officials, have attended information sessions, taken part in discussions, read extensively, and responded to proposals. In retrospect, I regret not being more forceful and demanding throughout the process. I became increasingly concerned that Waste Management was not acting in the interests of the community and was not proceeding in a manner which aided participants in understanding and taking part in the process in a meaningful manner. I also observed that Waste Management did not respond to stated concerns with any substantial changes in the undertaking. I think that this was the experience of many participants, including the City of Ottawa. As a result, I am not confident that Waste Management will build and operate a facility that encompasses the most current practices and designs for environmentally responsible management of waste. Therefore, I respectfully request that the City of Ottawa refuse or defer approval to amend the zoning bylaw. To support my position, I will refer to a few examples of problems with the process. I appreciate very much that the City submitted a response to the EA requesting a number of changes and conditions. Among them, a commitment by Waste Management to make this the last request to expand the dump, to decrease the size of the dump, to extend a property value protection plan for several kilometers around the dump, and to limit the collection area. These requests have been ignored by Waste Management and no changes made, even when the City repeated these requests several times. I have been a bit discouraged that the City has not been more forceful in its reaction to Waste Management not making any of these changes. The staff report being considered today states the proponent agreed to address outstanding concerns raised by the City through a combination of zoning, site plan control, the host or third-party agreement, and the environmental compliance approval. I am concerned that this may or will prevent participation in decisions by the larger community, and that the City will meet with limited success in effecting change. I would remind Council that Waste Management's original proposal several years ago was for a dump only. There was widespread community objection and many suggestions for diversion and alternatives. Waste Management withdrew the application and came back years later with a brand new name and a new proposal which included various diversion facilities. However, no details about these diversion facilities have been included in the documents related to the zoning application and the environmental compliance approval application. This application is for a dump and a dump only. For some years now, the City has revised its waste management plan, adding black box, blue box, and green bin recycling. The City hosted sessions and included Ottawa residents in decision-making. I attended some of those sessions and was encouraged that Ottawa is making efforts to develop new alternatives for managing waste. It would seem to follow that the City would then be really discouraged at the lack of detail and commitment about diversion presented by Waste Management, and that the City would therefore be very reluctant to approve the zoning amendment without these arrangements in place. It has been my experience that Waste Management has ignored most community input and frequently has not completed commitments made at sessions that were intended to inform and respond to the community. As an example, I'll cite one instance. This instance relates to the ECA submission, but it is representative of all waste management responses throughout the EA.
You have 1 minute left.
Thank you. And the zoning application. The Open House 2 was held last week on June 26th. The meeting notice stated that Waste Management would address the questions and concerns that had been raised at the previous open house. This was not done. The material presented consisted solely of the questions and concerns only. Waste Management presented no answering comments. When questioned about this, Mr. Murphy stated that the results of the session, that is, the questions, the comments, and their responses, would be posted on the website management the following day, June 27. I checked on July 2nd. There's nothing there. I have little faith in Waste Management's promises, and I ask that the City be concerned that commitments made by Waste Management will not be honored and not approve any application that does not state full commitments and details. In summary, I urge the City Councillors, the Agricultural and Rural Affairs Committee and Council to take a firmer stance by refusing to amend the zoning unless and until Waste Management fulfills the requirements of the EA, giving complete details and commitments for best management plans and diversion facilities.
Okay.
If the diversion facilities aren't going to happen, we need to know that.
Okay.
This refusal would aid the city in ensuring that its citizens are protected much more fully
Mary
against short
Catherine,
and
I've given you a
long-term.
little leeway. Could you wrap up?
Thank you. Before I close, I want to thank Councillor Kadri and Councillor Wilkinson for going on record as being opposed to the dump from a very early point in the process. Thank you for your time.
Thank you very much. Any questions before we move forward? Thanks again, Mary Catherine, for that. Gerald, Augusta, you're next. And is John McMillan in the house? It's not? Okay, thanks very much. The next speaker will be Diane Herbert.
Wilkinson. I will try to maintain with myself within the 5 minutes, and we'll be speaking directly to the slide presentation, making references occasionally to the notes that I have with it. I intend to address 4 items: the zoning versus the official plan amendment, the provincial policy statement, not council priorities per se, but rather the planning rationale associated with the report, and I'm going to speak to the rural and city implications. We maintain, the coalition and I, that this is not and should not be a zoning application. This should be an OP amendment because this is a new property for a new site. We questioned the city planner at the public meeting as to what defined a site. She told us that it wasn't done with the symbol on the OP, it was done by the Ministry of the Environment. The Ministry of Environment Environmental Compliance Approval 461002 defines the solid waste disposal boundary. That boundary is south of the proposal before you today. We strongly suggest that this is a new footprint and not an expansion. Every aspect of the application speaks solely to the footprint and not any related facilities therein. That also includes the EA, which was an environmental assessment for a new landfill footprint. I would point out to all members of the committee that if you compare the existing situation to that before you in the West Carleton Environmental Centre, the only significant difference is the brand new footprint. Staff report makes reference to the provincial policy statement and throughout makes references to city positions and policies. Staff suggests that this proposal follows the intent of the provincial policy statement. We don't agree with that. You will see that the policy statement says that the appropriate size and type of facility should be looked at to accommodate present and future requirements and facilitate, encourage, and promote reduction, reuse, and recycling objectives. You've already heard about the lack of detail respecting the latter, reduction, reuse, and recycling. This proposal is not sized for review of the municipality's needs. This proposal is sized solely on a business case provided by Waste Management. In fact, I would point out that what council resolution, going back some time, noted that in their opinion, the site was 40% too large. We continue to be faced with the same site. With respect to the planning rationale, staff, amongst many other points, states that it is anticipated that the MOE ECA will have been submitted further detailing the mitigation and monitoring of groundwater, noise, odor. These will not be addressed until such time. I do not believe that pressure is put on the municipality to move forward with the application. I reiterate that the diversion and material recycling facilities are totally omitted from the application.
Gerald, you have 1 minute remaining.
Very quickly. I would turn your attention to staff references to the rural and city implications in the term of council priorities. I did a review of those and found that at best, and I say at very, very best, these references to support approval of this application are tenuous. The details of this can be found in the submission that I have provided to you all by email today. And in the event that you did not receive them, I've brought hard copies for each of the members, as well as hard copies of my wife's presentation to you. I, like my wife, thank many of the council members for their long-standing interest and support of no dump and no future dump development with the municipality. Thank you.
Thank you very much, Gerald, for your presentation. We have a question from Councillor Vice Chair Blais.
Well, thank you. It's to staff, but following from Gerald's presentation. Cheryl, I just going back to the point on the provincial policy statement. How do we square that circle on the issue of sizing it appropriately to meet the goals of reduce, reuse, recycle?
With respect to the issue of appropriate size, the provincial policy statement doesn't get into the weeds on appropriate. It doesn't specifically note either regional boundaries or city boundaries as being the area to be looked at. And moving forward, appropriate in this case, based on the city's position on the EA, would be with respect to the city and the good neighbor policy.
And the PPS nor the province really anywhere doesn't really articulate really good objectives in recycling in this particular sector of the garbage stream. Is that right?
There's not enough specifics to move forward. No.
Okay. Thanks so much.
Thank you, Councillor Vice Chair Blais. Councillor Kadri.
Thank you, Mr. Chair. Just a question for the delegation. Mr. Gusta, you mentioned in your comments something to reference 40% too large in capacity.
That's correct.
Where did you get that information, sir?
That's in a city council motion that was presented as part of the environmental assessment process to the Minister of the Environment. I can't recall the date offhand.
Thank you very much, Mr. Gusta. And the reason I asked is that's part of what we're hoping to work with in terms of going forward with the site plan approval process. So just wanted to bring that out. Thank you.
Okay. Thanks very much, Councillor Kadri. Thank you, Gerald, for your presentation. Next speaker, John McMillan, is not here, so we'll move forward to Diane Hebert, and then following that, Wayne French. So Diane, okay, thank you very much. It's appreciated. Mr. French, okay, thank you. And the last speaker, Michelle Armstrong. Okay, you're satisfied with the presentation that's made. Okay, so we have We have completed the speaker roster, so we will move back to the item that is before us. The zoning bylaw amendment 2349, 2437 Carp Road and 512 William Mooney Road. This is a motion that Agriculture and Rural Affairs Committee recommend Council approve an amendment to zoning bylaw 2008-250 for 2349 through 2437 Carp Road and 512 William Mooney Road to permit the expansion of a solid waste disposal facility subject to a holding provision and increased setbacks as shown in Document 1 and as detailed in Document 2. So we'll open it up to questions to staff in light of the presentations or your own questions, and then we'll go to debate. First, Councillor Kadri.
Thank you very much, Mr. Chair. And first question to staff, based on the second public delegation comments about the addresses and the information not being accurate on the sign and on the city website. Any comment from staff on that?
Mr. Chair, the delegation did highlight that there was in fact some errors with the addressing initially. However, staff are confident that we've met the necessary notice provisions and met all of the required obligations with respect to the zoning amendment and providing accurate information at this time with respect to the advertisements and the recommendation of the report.
Thank you for that, Mr. Moody. And what I would suggest also is ask staff to, if that information still discrepancies, maybe that should be corrected before this item comes to council. Is that possible?
Certainly, Mr. Chair.
Thank you. I've got some other questions, Mr. Chair. Some of these questions came from the residents in the area, and I provided the list to Mr. Moody already on these questions, and I just want to read them out and maybe get a response from staff publicly in terms of some of those questions.
Thank you.
Were the long-term risks and constraints for the city analyzed when determining the staff's recommendation for approval of the zoning application?
Mr. Chair, as I've indicated briefly to the councillor, given the late timing of this question being identified and the detailed nature of it, staff will require a little bit of time to compose a fulsome response to some of these questions, and I apologize for having to provide that answer to you right now, but we will provide a written response to that question in advance of council.
And you would provide that before this item goes to council?
Yes, Mr. Chair.
And to not only our committee members, but the rest of the council?
That's correct, Mr. Chair.
Thank you. And just further question, one further question again from the questions provided earlier. The reference to site plan approval is not clear. Would the site plan approval apply to all of the WCEC property lands or solely to the additional lands, and would that approval address all the infrastructure proposed in the environmental assessment? That should be number 6 on your list, Mr. Moody.
Mr. Chair, I can answer that question, Councillor.
Thank you.
It will apply to the entire site.
It will?
Yes.
Okay. Thank you very much, Ms. Etna, and thank you very much, Mr. Chair, and we'll look forward to some of those responses.
Thank you, Councillor Kadri. Councillor Wilkinson.
Just a quick question. In the report, under the brief issue, it says that some of the issues that were not addressed are the odor management, property values up to 5 kilometers, service area limits, good neighbor policy, etc., which were listed before. Because we're putting a holding zone on it, can we be sure that we don't lift that holding zone until such time as all of those issues have been resolved?
Mr. Chair, those issues were identified by the city, through the environmental assessment process and following the environmental assessment being approved. There are items that staff will take as direction to negotiate as part of those, the various agreements, site plan agreement, host agreement, and various other agreements. However, at this point in time, I'm not in a position to confirm that we will be able to achieve satisfaction on all of those. However, the host agreement and I guess the clarity will be provided to council on that prior to coming back with the proposal to lift the H. The next step in this process does involve council again, and that is lifting of the holding provision, but also the approval of the ultimate host agreement.
Sorry, I'm aware of that. But the holding zone itself, is this particular holding zone going to come back to council to lift as opposed to being done by staff?
Yes, the holding provision will come back to council.
As a separate...
As a bylaw, yes.
It will come back as a bylaw, but if it's just a bylaw it's on our council agenda, we don't always really know what's there. Is there going to be a report going to committee when you're going to be doing that?
Mr. Chair, there typically is not a specific report going to committee to deal with the lifting of a holding provision. It is something that goes to council with the bylaws. However, the host agreement, which I think deals with a number of the issues you're dealing with, will be coming back to council in advance of that H being lifted.
Could I ask that when it is going to when the lifting of the H is going to go on an agenda, could we at least be notified in advance so that we can have a look at that particular bylaw lifting it? Because otherwise, as you know, we often get a whole list of bylaws and it's not always easy to pick them out.
Given the significance of this item, certainly staff will let council as a whole know that it's coming.
Okay, thank you. I appreciate that. Thank you, Mr. Chair.
Thank you for that, and I thank you, Mr. Moody. I think it is important. We do see items when they come back, but because of the high-profile nature of this item, I think it would be great just to make people aware that it is coming. Councillor Kadri?
Just a comment further, Mr. Chair, on Councillor Wilkinson's question. Just want to get legal's opinion in that is possible.
Yes, Mr. Chair, certainly it can be brought to council's attention once those items have been finalized, that the holding provision is being brought forward for a recommendation to lift that provision.
Thank you.
So, Mr. Moody, would that be simply an email sent out to, I mean, we don't normally do that because the agenda comes out, but there could be a separate email coming out to say that this item will be coming up? Is that the...
Mr. Chair, if it's the will of committee, staff would accept direction to provide a memo to council in advance of this item coming forward, just to clarify that the holding provision is listed on the bylaws.
Okay, thank you. Councillor Deputy Mayor El Santiri.
Thank you, Mr. Chair, and I believe in discussion with legal, I had asked him, because I would like to continue to be involved with the site plan approval and the host committee we had. I know drafting the host committee agreement is going to be between legal staff, but at the same time I would like to share it once it's been drafted with my 5 Western colleague and see what can we add. And I think that's in discussion, but I know not for this meeting. But Mr. Chair, if I can speak to this item, first of all, I want to thank my 5 West End Councillor colleague and yourself, but the 5 West End Council, because they've been involved from day one with every step of the way we have been taken. It goes back to 2006, Mr. Chair. The city submit conditions to the EA, and as we know, that didn't go very far in 2006, and in 2010, I submit the same motion with the same condition, and also the province choose to ignore those conditions. And now, obviously, we are working together with the holding provision to make sure some of those 5 items the environmental assessment talk about, we need to work with the working group. Mr. Chair, I'm the one who said it on council once before, and I say it again. No one wants to have a landfill in their backyard. No one. I don't care who you are. No one wants to see that. Question is here, we can easily say no and walk away from it and not walk away from our responsibility, or say yes to the zoning with holding on it and work together to make sure some of the community's concern will be met through the site plan approval and the host community agreement. So, Mr. Chair, I would ask legal to make sure the holding will stay on till at least the 5 West End Council have been informed and acknowledged with the process, and the local council have to sign on, and which is the norm on on the application, the concur. So with that, Mr. Chair, I'll turn to you, and thank you for your leadership.
Okay, thank you, Councillor Deputy Mayor Al-Shantiri. Comments, Councillor Vice Chair Blais?
Well, thank you very much, and I think as Councillor Al-Shantiri and Councillor Kadri have both said, no one wants a landfill in their backyard, in their neighborhood, in their community. Certainly in this day and age where our focus, at least as a municipality, on household garbage is on recycling and on diversion, as new technologies are continuing to be explored, the fact that we are continuing to bury the amount of garbage that we are continuing to bury is it is disgusting. In many ways, we are blessed by our geography, but in this particular instance, we are cursed by it because we have so much available land that this is the cheapest option. I'm also very discouraged, to be perfectly frank, with the Government of Ontario's hesitation and lack of action earlier this year, pushing Bill 91 forward and letting it die with the election. My hope, I've been reading the throne speech, I didn't see any reference to it. My hope is that the Government of Ontario will bring the Waste Reduction Act back with haste so that we can start to address this issue. Given that the Ministry of the Environment has continually rejected the City of Ottawa's advice and recommendations relating to this application and others, and given that they've chosen to approve the environmental assessment, I think it is probably prudent at this point. The likelihood of our being able to fight it much further is probably not high in terms of stopping the expansion, but giving the local councillors the opportunity through the holding provision to get some of those additional features they're looking for to in some ways reduce the impact on the community as much as possible, I think is probably the best way to go. And just towards this discussion about the holding provisions and whether it's coming back, it might simply be, I'm not sure whose ward it's in, but Councillor Al-Shantiri, you may wish to simply lift delegated authority on the site plan right now and have that recorded in the minutes of the meeting so that there is absolutely no confusion down the road as to what might happen. That's just a friendly suggestion, and I'll leave that to you. But certainly, it's unfortunate where we are, and my hope is that the province gets their act together on IC&I waste very soon. Thank you.
Thank you, Councillor Vice Chair Blais. Any Councillor Kadri?
Thank you very much, Mr. Chair, and I echo some of those comments that have been expressed around this table this afternoon. In terms of landfilling as an operation, whether it be this one or anywhere else in the city or in the province, I, as a councillor for the City of Ottawa in terms of Ward 6, am opposed to landfill of garbage anywhere in the city, not just in our yards, but everywhere in the city and everywhere in the province. Having said that, the reality today is that some of the technologies that are out there have not been investigated far enough or deep enough in order to say, well, today we have this technology available, but I'm hoping and certainly thinking about Plasco as it comes forward, and maybe that is the solution that we're looking for as a city. But again, restate my point that I do not support landfills in any part of this country or city. But today, I think, as Councillor Blais just mentioned, that at least beyond today, we have a little bit of control, not control necessarily, but a little bit of say in terms of the site plan when it comes forward, and hopefully to include some of those conditions in that site plan discussion that the province had totally ignored through the environmental assessment, especially a motion that was passed by this City Council on a consent basis. I was disappointed in that decision. Thank you very much, Mr. Chair.
Thank you, Councillor Kadri. I just wanted to make a couple of closing comments, and while I'm starting, Cheryl, would you mind putting up slide 12 for us? And I just want to begin by thanking those who came out today to speak on this item. And I know it's a very difficult position to be in when we're dealing with landfill expansion or a new one. And Councillor Blais and I are presently going through that. Fortunately or unfortunately, the application is in Councillor Blais' ward, but it's right next to Osgood ward. But I've gone through this myself. I know that in the former township of Osgood, we had a landfill expansion debate in 1998, and it's a very emotional issue. Some kind gentleman phoned and left a message saying if I voted in favor of this, I better wear a bulletproof vest wherever I went. I'm still here, and I didn't put a bulletproof vest on, but we know there are cases across the province where people have been shot when landfill expansions were being debated. But it's unfortunate that, and has been pointed out by our colleagues, that we are really at the mercy of the province and their position on landfill expansions. But I did ask that Cheryl put up slide 12. And I just want to bring to attention for those people here speaking against the proposal, if you look at the Public Liaison Committee, there are 3 in Osgood Ward. One, and I sit on all 3, and there's Spring Hill Landfill Advisory Committee. It's a Public Liaison Committee. And it was set up, and it works really well. The residents who are around there were very much opposed to the existing landfill, but over the years we meet 3 or 4 times a year, and they're very happy now. Honestly, they're happy with the landfill that their properties surround, because they're made aware of what changes and what safeguards are put in there. There's also Public Liaison Committee for Orgo-World, which is also, the plant is in Osgood Ward. There was a great deal of opposition to it, but now this Public Liaison Committee, it's made up of members and residents around it. They're very happy with, and we have not had one complaint about that facility. And I think part of it is because we've had this Public Liaison Committee, and we meet 3, 4, 5 times a year, and people are aware of what's happening, and it's the unknown that make people very concerned. And also there's a 3rd Public Liaison Committee in Osgood Ward. It's a Rideau Road Quarry Public Liaison Committee, and it deals with a number of quarries that are on the Rideau Road area in Osgood Ward. And the people are very happy with the quarry, believe it or not, because they're aware of issues and they can bring forward issues that arise in regard to those quarry operations. So I presume that this motion will pass, but I would just say to those who are opposed down the road that the Public Liaison Committees can work. And so with that, I would just ask that on this item number 6,
one quick comment, Mr. Chair, if I may. I would like to direct legal staff to prepare a motion for Council Day to make sure that the holding provision will not be removed without the Councilor's consent. So I think that's a motion legal can prepare, not for today, but for Council Day when this item comes to Council. I spoke to legal, and they can prepare the motion. Just
Ms. Enter?
Yes, Mr. Chair, we can prepare that motion. Perhaps if the Chair feels that it's appropriate to provide an information report at the time that the holding provision is coming back to Council, that will give the committee any information that they need at that time.
Okay. You're satisfied? Okay. Thank you very much, Ms. Enta and Councillor Deputy Mayor Al-Shantiri. So on this item number 6, is it carried? Okay. Thank you. We will move now to further on our agenda. There are no in-camera items. We have the open mic session, and we have 3 speakers listed. We have 4. Okay, thank you. The first one is Darren. Shannon. Shannon. It's nice to see you again, Shannon. So if you just press the button and you and the speaker button.
This is not me.
Okay.
Can I shut it?
Shannon, just for your benefit and others, you have 5 minutes, and we have met previously and outlined the procedures for the open mic. You can speak to us. No decision will be made here tonight, but we can direct staff to take a look at the position that you present.
Does this mean I'm on?
Okay, thank you. I'm going to read this because it's 5 minutes is a lot to memorize for me. So good day, Councillor Thompson. Good day, Councillor Blais. Good day, Councillor Al Shantiri and Councillor Moffat and Councillor Quadri. I come today to represent 2,000 City of Ottawa residents and our companion animals. My name is Shannon Joost. I am a resident of Osgood, and I own and operate Chew That, a successful pet supply store in Riverside South. My previous role was a supervisor at the Ottawa Humane Society. I am joined by my colleagues Eileen Woodside from Old Ottawa East and Gert Zagler from Stittsville. We are here today to ask for an amendment to bylaw 2011-241 with respect to the sourcing of pets sold in pet stores, specifically puppies, kittens, and rabbits. The current bylaw fails to protect consumers and promotes poor animal welfare. Our city has an ever-growing population of homeless and unwanted pets, and these pets are being cared for by your residents. Today, there are 1,163 dogs, 1,689 cats, and 525 rabbits and other small animals within 160 kilometers of Ottawa looking for permanent homes. This number fails to include the number of animals that are euthanized daily due to unadoptability for poor health, temperament, or lack of space. That is nearly 3,500 pets looking for homes today in our nation's capital. In 2013, the Ottawa Humane Society, along with the support of our local pet rescues, admitted over 13,000 pets for care. Do you see a problem? As each year passes, the intake numbers of our shelter and rescues are increasing at an unmanageable rate. Restrictions like the one we are asking for have been brought into force in 5 municipalities, and another 6 are in front of committee at this time in Ontario alone. Throughout Canada and the U.S., 57 jurisdictions have put a pet sale restriction in place successfully. We ask you today to listen to your residents and industry experts to support an amendment to include a restriction on the sale of the above said pets in City of Ottawa pet stores. We recognize that the public has a right to purchase pets. However, making this purchase from a pet store is a poor representation of the pet industry and, more often than not, leaves consumers robbed. Consumers may be told they are purchasing a purebred dog when, in fact, the Canadian Kennel Club and the Animal Pedigree Act state that no breeder shall sell or donate dogs for the purpose of being auctioned, raffled, or to pet stores. The CKC also states that all dogs must be uniquely and permanently identified. This is not the case when making this purchase from a pet store. Identification facilitates tracking of any potential viral migration in the event of any public health concerns as they arrive. Further, the Ministry of Long-Term Health and Care believe that offering animal adoptions as opposed to the retail sales of cats and dogs promotes community protection from zoonotic diseases such as rabies. Bringing a companion animal into one's home is often an emotional decision, but decisions such as these need to be measured and deliberated since they are meant to be for a lifetime. Sadly, this is often not the case when pets are purchased from a pet store. Purchases through a pet store channel are often on impulse and come with few, if any, checks and balances. Studies show that animals bought under these circumstances are much more likely to be found on the street or surrendered to a shelter. By restricting sources, we will reduce the economic burden of overcrowding and euthanasia in our shelters. Some pet store owners will argue that banning the sale of pets in their establishment will negatively impact their ability to conduct a profitable business. However, as the owner of an independent and successful pet store, together with others such as PetSmart, Pet Value, and Global Pet Foods, we have all willingly undertaken a responsible and compassionate approach to pet ownership, having introduced the humane model of operating satellite adoption centers. And our business continue to flourish. As well, by welcoming local rescue groups into our stores, our businesses actually benefit with the sale of necessary supplies, accessories such as food, bedding, collars, harnesses, toys, and grooming supplies. What we are asking of you today is not to blaze a new trail or break new ground. Rather, we are asking you to champion our efforts to bring Ottawa in step with the many other municipalities in the province and across Canada that have already put bylaws in place or are working to bring changes to restrict the sale of pets in pet stores. So again, I urge you to hear our request for an amendment to bylaw 211-241 to include restrictions on the sale of puppies, kittens, and rabbits in pet stores and other retail outlets throughout our nation's capital. I thank you for your time, and I thank you in advance for your support. I provided Mark with some other references for review.
Okay.
Thank you.
Thank you very much, Shannon, and
thank you.
It's nice to see you here, and I know your mom worked for the township, I believe, and oh, she is here? And now she works for the city, so it's nice to see you out. Thanks, Shannon, for coming out, and I appreciate your sincerity in this issue, and we will, as provided in our policy, we will ask city staff to review what you presented to us and give us back some detail, because they're the ones who advise us on what actions we can take. Mr. Moody, I see those fearful eyes looking at me.
Thank you, Mr. Chair. Just a quick word that this may fall under the jurisdiction of another standing committee, and if that's the case, our feedback back to the committee may be fairly brief.
Yes. Okay. Yes. Thank you. And when I met with Shannon, she wanted a venue to bring this up, and so I suggested that she come here, and she was advised that this is the first step, and we await your wise counsel. Thank you. Next, we have Darren Green.
The wheels in his head.
Good afternoon, councillors. I'm just wondering if you had received my site plan and if you had received the regional municipal development charge analysis that I had created. Did a little research.
Sorry, did you have, what was the subject line of your email?
Subject line of?
Your email.
It's okay, it's right here.
Of my email?
Oh, sorry, I got it here.
Okay. Okay, shouldn't take long. I'm developing a mini storage site in the great village of Richmond, and I've been 5 years in the process. It's been a long process. I was quite floored with the development charge, educational charge, and building permit fees at $40,500 per building for myself, based on a 4,500 square foot self-storage building. So I did a little research with regards to what other municipalities within our region charge. Mississippi Mills, with a population of 11,000, charge 29 cents a square foot at $1,305. Educational charge, $0. Building permit, $3,465 for a total cost of $4,770. Carlton Place, with a population of 10,000, charge $8,505 for the development charge, $0 again for the educational charge, $2,000 for the building permit, for a total cost of $10,505. Iron Prior, with a population of 8,000, they charge $7,200 for a development charge, $0 for an educational charge, $1,800 for a building permit, for a total of $9,000. Kempville, with a population of 3,500, charges $7,065, $0 again for an educational charge, and $1,710 for a building permit, for a total of $8,775. Smith Falls, with a population of 9,000 people, charge $0 for a development charge, $0 for educational charge, and their building permit is $2,000 for a total of $2,000. Castleman, which is out in Prescott Russell, with a population of 4,000, charge $10,395 for a development charge, $0 for an educational charge, $3,300 $50 for a building permit for a total cost of $13,745. They're the most expensive of all of them, next to us in Ottawa. Richmond Village, although in Ottawa, has a population of 4,000. The development charge is $32,130. The educational charge, which we have and no other municipality has, is $6,390. The building permit is on par at $1,980 for a total cost of $40,500. This, to me, at 400% higher than what other municipalities charge, seems unreasonable. And really, when I look at the difference between the municipalities, I see that Richmond offers public transit, and they have that listed at $1.93 per square foot, which for a total value of $8,685. If you added that to the highest of the outlying municipalities of Ottawa, the total would be $22,430, which is just over 50%. Yeah, it's 50% lower, right? So to me, with regards to our rural unserviced development charges, I feel that there's something wrong with the City of Ottawa's methodologies for calculating DCs and ECs. And I would like for Council to take a look at, or ask staff to take a look at this scenario and what it is that's going on. I know that Councillor Moffat, I've made you aware, Councillor El Chantier, I've made you aware. My sister says my approach is a little too strong, and but I think that I need to give you the ammunition that you need, because if we don't make you aware of this, you're 26 councillors, I'm not sure, in the City of Ottawa, and realistically you're governing a huge venue where we used to have, who knows, upwards of 80 or 90 councillors, so much more oversight. So unless this is brought to your attention, and so my little barbs that I offered to you guys is just to give you the ammunition that you need to do your job effectively. Councillor Moffat, you just spoke of minor variances and saving landowners $700, and you actually spoke of that it's a money grab. When I look at something like this here, to me this is a money grab. My wife and I are developing this site for my kids, myself.
Darren, I made my first mistake of the year. I didn't give you a 1-minute warning, so I'll give you a warning now to give you a few seconds to wrap up. To me, it looks like a money grab. I would ask that you please redirect staff to take a look at this. We are offering up a roadway that has been asked of Cheryl. Anyways, we're offering that up as part of a bartering process there with regards to development charges. And if you could redirect staff and take a look deeper into this, we would appreciate it. Okay, thank you very much, and I know Councillor Blais wants to make one quick comment, and I think as provided, thank you for the presentation, thank you for the research, and I think you speak to the converted about the issues of development charges, but we will have staff prepare a response based on the city's position and the city. The city has established these development charges, so, but we will have staff respond to your request here. And Councillor Blais.
Thank you very much, and you've brought up a point which is very near and dear to my heart, which is comparison of the city, especially our villages, to the municipalities that surround us. Unfortunately, whether you're in Richmond or Cumberland or Carp or any of the other smaller villages and hamlets within the City of Ottawa, development charges are collected to pay for the citywide network. And given that, but if you live in Castleman or if you live in Rockland or Carleton Place or Kempville, you only have to pay for the development charges for those tiny municipalities, even though the majority of those populations are coming into the City of Ottawa for work each and every day. So it puts an undue burden on our infrastructure. And that's why last week or 2 weeks ago, City Council passed a motion to request that the province of Ontario conduct something Places to Grow study, which is to look at Eastern Ontario from a growth perspective, so from a development perspective, as a region, and to come up with a plan regionally so that some of these issues can be more properly addressed and that there can be some fairness brought into the system and allow us to, in some way, not have to frankly subsidize smaller municipalities on our periphery. So I would encourage you to contact your member of provincial parliament and have him or her support the city's request to the government as the session has come back at Queen's Park. So thank you very much.
Thanks very much for that, Darren, and we will have a response for you. And I think, as I said, we appreciate your concern, and what you have expressed to us today is we hear that repeatedly, and as you indicated to me before the meeting, that you're a small business person that just wants to have a business in the city, and it's almost it's out of reach if you have to.
I'm also a teacher at Sir Robert Borden High School.
Oh, teacher.
And I teach entrepreneurship.
Yep.
And I teach development.
Yep.
And I take a look and I go, what kind of future are we going to create for our children if it's not competitive and comparable? This here is, it's astronomical.
Yep.
Well,
Thank you. I'm a former teacher, so you must be good quality stuff. Thank you.
Thank you.
Next, we have Kim Sheldrick. And Kim, come forward. This must be Osgood Ward Day. Every day is Osgood Ward Day. Thank you, Kim, and thank you for coming down. And I noticed on Facebook that you invited me to your parents' 50th anniversary on August the 16th, and that's great to have a party on that day because that's my birthday. So thank you. Have a cake for me that day as well, okay?
Yes.
Kim, you have 5 minutes, and you have 5 minutes.
Go for it.
You have 5 minutes, and you know the procedure, and I will warn you at 1 minute.
Okay. I'm here today to speak to you about poison parsnip. This is about my 7th year coming to present to committees and councils. It is hogweed's little cousin. Everyone hears about the hogweed, but not as many people hear about the poison parsnip, but it does have the same effects. It can cause blindness. It can cause severe burns. My oldest son was burnt 8 years ago. The scars have finally healed over. I was burnt about 6 years ago, and it took 6 months of treatment to have that disappear. I've been to the former Forest and Green Space Committee, the Rural Issues Advisory Committee, the Rural Affairs Office, and I've sent emails to all the councillors, not anything this year, so you haven't missed anything this year. I spoke to the public health nurse as recently as last week. They have no handouts, no information, no warnings that they give out to people other than if somebody asks them about it. In Stormont, Dundas, and Glengarry counties, they have been spraying for about 2 years, and they have a 90% effective rate because they can get the spray right up to the fence lines and to the trees, around signs, around guardrails, and everything. Part of the issue is that the province doesn't state that poison parsnip is a noxious weed, even though hogweed is. The cutting that is being done right now, it is slightly effective, but once again, it doesn't get around the guardrails, doesn't get around signs, trees, only gets one side of the ditch, and is often happening too late. For the past 5 or 6 years, what I've been doing is I've been going to the 5 local schools in our community. The worst one is Castor Valley because it has farmers' fields on 2 sides of it, and I've personally pulled over 500 poison parsnip plants out that were all within reach of the school kids. Metcalfe Public, Osgood Township High School, St. Catherine's, and Metcalfe Community Christian School, due to their locations, do not have quite as much, but at Castor Valley it is a real hazard to the kids there. I've also received phone calls from other people within Metcalfe, Vernon, Kenmore in the last couple of years because they don't know what this plant is. They see my Facebook post, they hear me talk about it, and they don't know how to identify it. So I've actually gone out when 311 was called and they said, well, there's nothing we can do about it. I go out and help identify it and help keep all the neighbors and their kids safe. So what I'm asking is if we can, I know the city does not go out and spray for weeds, but if it could be reconsidered for something like this that can cause severe burns and blindness. I think we should be doing something a little bit more than just cutting on one side of the ditches. Thank you.
Okay, thank you very much for that, Kim, and I know that Mr. Moody is a farmer by heart. And I think we're all well aware of the issue with this noxious weed, and there are restrictions that we have on how we deal with it. I know, for an example, that there was a young person from Osgood Ward who worked with the city roads crew, and they were out cutting it, and he had on all the protective gear, and he still was impacted by that. So it is a very serious item. So thank you for that, and we will pass on your comments to appropriate staff to see it. We are restricted. We try to do, and I think the roads people are aware of this, but it's an issue that we are trying to deal with. I know Castro Valley, I think we did cut the weeds in the ditch last year.
Yeah, for there it's more of in the Veltois fields that are around because it's cornfields.
Yeah.
So it's difficult to get in there other than basically reaching across the fence and pulling them out by hand.
Well, thanks for raising this issue again, and I think we're all aware of that, and thanks again for that. And last but not least, Shirley. This is our final speaker for the open mic.
Good afternoon, gentlemen. I'll be speaking on a different topic today.
Well, it's really, really nice because you know why? I was going to have to rule you out of order if you're going to talk about D55, so I don't have to do that. So.
I'm not even going to mention it.
Okay, good. I did. I shouldn't have. Okay, you know the rules, Shirley, 5 minutes, and thank you for coming out tonight.
Thank you.
This afternoon.
This afternoon, gentlemen, I'd like to talk about the Ontario Landowners Association, who we are, what we do. And it's being suggested that we are the stuff of nonsense, and I'd like to assure you that nothing is further from the truth. We're an organization of 20 county chapters governed by the Ontario Landowners Association Executive. I'm the president of one of those chapters, the Carleton, Ottawa chapter, and I am also a member of the OLA Executive. Like many other organizations, each chapter has a board of directors, an annual general meeting, and members who support our most important mandate of providing information to the public regarding private property rights. We're all volunteers. We have no paid staff. We have a team of researchers who read legislation and regulations and provide the county chapters with useful information regarding the many laws governing the province and municipalities. They provide us with a heads up on regulations and policies that will impact our use and enjoyment of our property. We receive calls on a daily basis from people who are trying to make a life for their families, often by profiting from their property. The calls are generally about bylaws and regulations that reduce their ability to earn a living. There are many instances where it appears that provincial and municipal officials are overstepping their authority, and I'll just provide one such example, and that's the Forest Inventory and Ecological Land Survey, which the Ministry of Natural Resources is currently conducting in the Ottawa Valley. You may be familiar with it. The work has been contracted to Thunder House Forest Services from Hearst, Ontario, with the understanding that work on private property will not be conducted without the property owner's consent. However, we have had reports that crews are showing up on private land with no notice to the landowner. We anticipate that the result of this study will be designation of lands as natural heritage where restrictions will be put on development. This is one of the land use controls that we foresee resulting from the Provincial Policy Statement 2014, which maybe some or all of you are familiar with. I'm sure Derek is familiar with it. I'm just wondering how many of you have had the opportunity to read the provincial policy statement, and have you understood it, and are you able to explain to your constituents, landowners, the impact it will have on their ability to own, use, and enjoy their land? We look to you, our councillors, to help us understand the impact of these policies on our lives. And when the policies are too restrictive and don't make sense, we also look to you to advocate to the province for a more balanced approach. Our researchers have read the provincial policy statement, the Planning Act, the Municipal Act, and many other acts and regulations. Some of what we are reading is disturbing, and in some instances, it appears that government officials are acting beyond their mandate. In the past, the Carleton Landowners Association has asked City of Ottawa staff and councillors to attend our meetings to hear our position on property rights and some of our concerns as well. When reading documents like this, it is a bit concerning and frightening to us, because we can see more and more designations on our private property. So this afternoon, I'm here to again extend an invitation to all 5 of you to attend our International Property Rights Conference, which is taking place on Saturday, October the 4th, at the Holiday Inn in Canada. There's also another one there's also another meeting which I've included in the package, but I won't mention that here. But we'd also like you to come to our annual general meeting as well. Many other municipal mayors and councillors are attending landowner meetings to hear our perspective. This is about discussion, and it's about an opportunity to join us and to engage in dialogue. So we don't want it to be just us talking to you. We'd like you to hear what we have to say and hear our perspective, and we would like to hear your input as well. And so with that, I am extending that invitation to you. The tickets for the international conference are $100. The Carleton Landowners Association will be paying that for each of you that will attend that meeting, and we're hoping that all of you can. Thank you.
Okay, thank you very much, Shirley. I guess I'd look to legal counsel. Can we accept $100 tickets? Guess if we could, we'd have to.
You just have to report
it. Thank you very much, Shirley. I really appreciate you coming out today. And I know you didn't mention D55, and I did, but I just wanted to thank you again for your work with Councillor Deputy Mayor Al Santieri, because I think we've moved, maybe not as far as you would have hoped, but I think we are moving forward, and so I appreciate the leadership you've shown in moving that forward. Some of your predecessors in the organization were a little more difficult to work with than you are, so we appreciate your attitude and complacency in working with us rather than against us. So we appreciate that, and it is recognized with staff and with members of this committee. So thank you.
Thank you. And if the money is an issue, if the $100 tickets are an issue, we'll find another way to get you there.
No, we'd rather be up front. I was just being done. So thanks again, Shirley. We appreciate you coming up.
Thank you.
So with that, there are no other speakers. Are there any notices of motion for consideration at a subsequent meeting? Any inquiries? Any other business? I just wanted to acknowledge my executive assistant, Jennifer Johnson, who she said she would rather be here than at home with her 4 kids. So thank you for staying. Our next meeting is Thursday, September the 4th, the Bear Brook Community Center. So we look forward to you hosting that, Councillor Vice Chair Blaise. So with that,
GPS doesn't work there, so map it out on an actual paper map.
Do they have indoor facilities?
They do.
Okay, thank you.
And a skateboard park for Councillor Al Chanteri.
I see. Okay, thank you very much. We are adjourned.